This presentation within the Chromebooks 101 course is going to be about best practices for teacher management of Chromebooks. The importance of managing the Chromebooks is to best protect the Chromebook and to ensure student engagement. This presentation is going to help to present some of the best practices for managing not only the Chromebook devices within your school and your classroom, but also help with classroom management. We will first start with talking about the deployment process of the Chromebook devices. We will then move on to classroom management tips and talk about where you can find support once your students and yourself have the devices in their hands. The deployment of the Chromebooks. The student devices. Each student will be assigned a Chromebook through the technology department that they will use each and every day and possibly be able to take home with them. If a new student joins your class, they will be required to complete the necessary orientation in order to receive an assigned device through Granville County Public Schools. The deployment of the Chromebooks will take place in phases. Training on the use of the Chromebooks will first begin with staff, and training will be provided on what it can do within an educational environment. The opportunity to take home a Chromebook or get your hands on a Chromebook as a staff in order to become familiar with the device will also happen prior to the students receiving their devices. In order for students to receive a Chromebook or their technology device, they must complete the following with a parent or guardian. They will first attend a device orientation together. They will also be required to complete a technology responsible use form. And also, for this year, they will be required to pay a $10 technology usage fee. Each student will also be guided by a classroom teacher on how to use a Chromebook, similar to this online course in which you are taking. When the students receive their devices, they will be required to log into the Chromebook using their Granville County Public School email address. You can see that their username is @gcsnc.us and their computer password. Unless students have changed their password, they will receive a school generic password. Please keep in mind that teachers can also access a Chromebook using their email address using @gcs.k12.nc.us and their password in order to access the computer. If you need help, please contact an instructional technology facilitator or a school technician. Let's talk about tips and strategies for great classroom management in a technology-rich classroom. It is important to establish an acceptable use policy or manage the devices within your classroom on the first few days during deployment. It is best to discuss the settings and perimeters for use, and also establish keywords that will allow students to know what to do on a consistent basis. For example, an open-close policy. In order to ensure student engagement, please be sure to instruct your students on when to open and close their devices. If you are not allowing students to take notes on their device while you are speaking, it is best to ask them to close their device so that the attention is directed where it needs to be. You can then instruct a student when to open their device and where to go on their device. This will help, and you can use the same keywords. This will help so that the students know and quickly learn how to follow the directions. Please allow the students to understand that headphones can only be used when directed by their classroom teacher. Movement equals accountability within the classroom. Whether or not technology is in the classroom environment, the best way to monitor students is to be moving and walking throughout the classroom. Close proximity to students is a great way in order to prevent student misuse of technology, as well as to pull students back on task, whether it be with a technology device or with their technology device closed. Crostini is a Chromebook monitoring system that could also help you see what your students are doing while using the Chromebook. But please remember the best way to monitor your students is to be walking throughout the classroom. In a one-to-one environment, the layout of your classroom will need to be adapted to the activities within your lesson plans. Your lesson plans and student behaviors will help to drive the layout of your classroom. If your students are working on a project, please be sure that the desks are moved close together in small groups so that you can observe all devices easily as you move around the classroom. This will also allow for collaboration between students. If you need to lecture, create an alley or stage-like layout with 2 rows of desks facing you so that you can easily see each student as you teach and move along the rows. If your students are completing an individual assignment, placement of desks is key so you can easily see each of the screens while walking through the classroom. These types of layouts will allow for you to easily contact or communicate with a student and pull them back on class. Please look closely at the classroom layouts and how would some of these layouts enhance management and how could the layouts disrupt the classroom atmosphere. Each layout is slightly different and could be appropriate for different activities. But please remember that certain layouts will be best for various teaching strategies and others will not. Please be sure to read your students' body language and take a look at their devices. If you are continuously moving throughout the classroom, it could be easy to read your students' facial expressions and body language. I know that when I am instructing, if a student is looking at their device and looking at me and looking back at their device and looking at me, and when I get closer to them, doesn't seem to be having that nervous tick, I can usually tell that maybe I need to stick close to them for a little bit because in order to keep them on task. When a student is trying to be off task, they will look to see where you're located in the classroom. Students may also dim their screen and move their device closer to them so that you are unable to read what is on their device. It is okay to ask them to be sure you can see their device and to keep it desk level. Students appreciate the accountability on most terms. If your classroom environment has a student that tends to be an off-task Tom, you can ask that student or provide that student with a task that can pull them back into the activity or back into the discussion. If you are providing a lecture on plants, you can ask Tom to Google a certain type of plant to answer a question and pull him back into the whole entire class discussion. If this doesn't help to pull him back into the activity, please have a routine or procedure in place to ask the student to shut their device and provide them with an alternative way to complete the task at hand. An example would be if you are allowing the student to take notes on their device and see that they are off task, simply tapping the top of the computer will show the student that he or she needs to close the device and pull out a sheet of paper and a pencil in order to complete the task that is at hand. Lesson planning is key in any type of classroom environment. You can rethink your lesson plans to allow for differentiation to best utilize the technology in which you have available. Devices are great to read from or take notes from, but if this is the only form of use for the technology within your classroom, there will be disruptions. Variation is key. Please feel free to reach out to an instructional technology coach for tools to help enhance a lesson. Technology support is also key when converting into a digital environment. If there is anything wrong with a Chromebook that your student has, they should contact your school's technician immediately by logging a ticket through the GCPS school website. There are also many technology personnel who will help in order to support you and your students. There's a technician on each campus throughout the day at some point. There are also instructional technology facilitators in which you can reach out to. There is a teacher technology leader at each school, and your colleagues are your best source of resources when looking for ways to support one another. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation.